Hello students, we have already discussed chapter 6 life processes. In this video, we shall be discussing chapter 7 control and coordination. The two tissues that are involved in control and coordination are the nervous tissue and the muscular tissue. The muscular tissue consists of the voluntary, involuntary and the cardiac muscles. We have already studied the structure, function and location in detail in standard 9. Now let us focus on nervous tissue. Nervous tissue consists of nerve cells which are otherwise known as neurons. Each neuron consists of three parts, that is the cell body or cyton, the axon and the nerve endings. The cell body or cyton is branched and these branches are known as dendrons, and these dendrons are further divided into smaller branches known as dendrites. The cell body is produced into a long tubular structure known as axon, which terminates in the nerve endings. Present in the cyton or cell body are nucleus, cytoplasm and micelle granules. All the information from the environment is acquired by specialized tips of some nerve cells. These are known as receptors. Receptors are found in sense organs like the eye, nose, inner ear, tongue and the skin. The gustatory receptors are receptors of taste which are found in the tongue, while the olfactory receptors are receptors of smell which are found in the nose. Now let us see how nerve impulses travel in the body. Information that is acquired at the dendritic tips. When this information is acquired, a chemical reaction is set up, and this results in the formation of electrical impulses. These electrical impulses then travel through the cyton, axon and finally reach the nerve endings. At the nerve endings, chemicals are released. These chemicals cross the gap called synapse and are detected by the dendritic tips of the next neuron, where it is again converted to electrical impulses. A similar neuron finally helps in the delivery of electrical impulses from the neurons to some cells such as the muscle cells and the glands. This region is known as the neuromuscular junction. At the neuromuscular junction are present mitochondria. Now, what is the function of mitochondria? It is to release energy in the form of ATP. This ATP is utilized for the movement of muscles. Let us see some common features, such as when you have a cold, your nose is blocked, and during this time, if you have food, it does not taste well. This is because your olfactory receptors are not functioning properly because of the infection. Another instance is, suppose your tongue is burnt, and at that time, if you eat food, again, it does not taste well. What's the reason? The reason is that the gustatory receptors in the tongue are not functioning properly. So, to detect various senses such as sight, taste, smell, hearing, and feelings such as pain, heat, etc., these receptors and the sense organs are very important, or they play a very important role. Now, let us discuss what is reflex action. It is a sudden response to certain changes in the environment. Once again, it is a sudden response to certain changes in the environment. Now, how is control and coordination brought about in reflex actions? We have to analyze this in detail. Suppose we touch a hot object. So what is the immediate response? We take our hand before even thinking. We take off our hand from the hot object. Now, who gives the command to take off the hand? This is what we have to discuss in detail. Let us first think that it is the brain that gives this command. Now, if it is the brain, let us see what happens. The brain is well protected by the bony box called skull or cranium. Brain is divided into three, that is the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. The forebrain is otherwise known as cerebrum. It is the main thinking part of the brain. The brain is densely packed with many neurons, and thinking takes place, as I told you, in the forebrain. Now, thinking is a very complex activity which involves lot of interactions between various nerves, and thus electrical impulses are released from many neurons. So it is a highly complex activity. So when the brain receives messages, thinking occurs. And since thinking is a very complex activity, it takes time for giving a response message. So by the time we take our hand off from the hot object, if the brain is in command, our hand will get completely burnt. So we cannot allow the brain to take decisions in such emergency situations. Then, what has our body come up with? It is the reflex arc. Now, what is the reflex arc? It is the connection between the input nerves which receive signals and the output nerves which give the response signals. Such a connection, which is found in the spinal cord between the input and the output nerves, is known as reflex arc. Reflex arcs have been highly evolved in animals because of two reasons. One, thinking is a slow process, and thinking is a very complex activity. Now let us see the events, or let us trace the events that happen in an emergency situation. Suppose we are touching a hot object. So the receptors of heat and pain detect it, and the signals are sent to the sensory neuron. The sensory neuron then sends it to the motor neuron through the relay neuron, which is found in the spinal cord. The motor neuron then sends the electrical impulses to the effector muscle. Thus, the response is completed in the emergency situation. Now let us see the nervous tissue. The nervous tissue consists of three important parts, that is the brain, the spinal cord and the nerves. First of all, let us see CNS. So what is the full form of CNS? Central Nervous System. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is the main coordinating center in our body. The central nervous system receives messages from all over the body and it is integrated here. Now then, what is PNS? PNS means Peripheral Nervous System. It consists of the cranial nerves that arise from the brain and the spinal nerves that arise from the spinal cord. It is a connection between the central nervous system and the other parts of the body. Let us now focus on the brain. The brain is well protected by a bony box called skull or cranium. The brain is divided into three, that is the forebrain, the midbrain and the hindbrain. The forebrain is otherwise known as cerebrum, and there are two endocrine glands associated with the brain, that is the hypothalamus and the pituitary. The pituitary is otherwise known as the master gland. Now let us analyze the functions of forebrain. Forebrain is the main thinking part of the brain. It has separate areas for hearing, sight, smell, etc. Therefore, the sense organs, they send signals to these separate areas. And there are also separate areas for the association where sensory information is interpreted and analyzed along with the information that is already stored. After analyzing the information that is available, the command is sent to the voluntary muscles, and thus the movement of the hands and legs occur. Apart from this, there is also a center for hunger in the forebrain. Now midbrain. Midbrain, the main function is involuntary actions such as beating of the heart, breathing, peristaltic movement in the alimentary canal, etc. Hindbrain has three parts: the pons, medulla and cerebellum. The medulla also is responsible for involuntary actions such as vomiting, blood pressure, etc. While cerebellum has two important functions, that is, it helps to maintain balance and posture, and also it is responsible for activities that need precision, such as walking in a straight line, picking up a pencil, or riding a bicycle. The brain and the spinal cord are well protected. The brain is well protected by a bony box called skull or cranium. Inside the skull, there is a fluid-filled balloon-like structure in which the brain is located, and this helps the brain to absorb any kind of shock. The spinal cord is well protected by the vertebral column, which is otherwise known as backbone. Now let us see how nervous tissue cause action. When muscles receive electrical impulses, there is a change in the shape of the muscle cells. Now, how is this change brought about? Muscle cells are made up of specialized proteins. So, as soon as they receive the electrical impulses, these specialized proteins, they change their shape. When they change their shape, it results in the shortening of the muscle cells. Thus, action is completed. With that, we have completed today's topic. Thank you.